Welcome to the House of Rou podcast. I'm your host, Rosanna McHale. As someone who has spent a career working with leaders, change makers, and people from all walks of life, I've always been fascinated by the human story behind the achievement. On House of Rou, we explore the stories behind the title, the performance, and the public image. Because behind every accomplishment is a story of purpose, resilience, and becoming. And behind every title is a person waiting to be seen. Let's begin. Today, I'm joined by Margot Grant Witz, Vice President of Elizabeth Grant Skincare. For more than 70 years, Elizabeth Grant has been a Canadian family business built on resilience, innovation, and really the belief that confidence begins from within. What started with one woman's determination to rebuild her life after the Second World War has grown into an internationally recognized brand spanning 3 generations. Today, Margot carries the legacy forward, but beyond the family name, the business, and the leadership title is a woman who has had to discover her own voice and define her own path and honor a remarkable history while writing the next chapter herself. Today, we're going to explore the privilege, but also the responsibility of carrying a family legacy, the unseen realities of leadership, and what it truly means to build a life and a career with purpose. Because behind every legacy, there is also a human story. Margot, welcome to House of Rou.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Same here. I am really fascinated by the stories that I've heard about you and the family business. So I want to jump to something that's a little bit different here. And I want to ask you, before the vice president role, okay, before the title, before Elizabeth Grant, who
Before the woman, who was
before the woman, who were you?
Honestly, I was just someone trying to find my way. And I think that's very common and very universal. We have these grand ideas of who we're going to be or what our life is going to look like and who the adventure was. And it went from everything of being like, I'm going to adopt a child and be a single mom in New York to realistically, I was an English high school teacher for a minute or two. And I really found a great passion of trying to help people feel better about who they were in that moment versus the pressures of who they thought they had to be.
I want to ask you, did you ever realize that did you always look at Elizabeth Grant as your grandma, or was there a clear realization that this was the Elizabeth Grant?
She was always Grams to me. She was always Graham. She was always Lizzie, up to her chagrin. And what I mean by that, I'd be out in public in a mall with her and I'd be like, Grandma. And she'd be like, don't call me Grandma. I am Elizabeth. And I'm like, you're Grams. So she was always my grandma. And I respected always what she built and I respected who she was and I respected on who she wanted to be. But to me, it wasn't anything. It was just someone who I got to have a dinner with once a week because my grandma and I always would do a one-on-one dinner. And it
Mm,
was that quality time that I didn't care who she was outside. She was always just so special to me.
that's lovely. And for those who don't know the story, I did mention this in the intro a little bit, but this whole thing, 3 generations in, over 70 years of this Canadian, family business. Um, at what point, well, actually, maybe just to say, like, it wasn't just a story about, oh, your grandma surviving the Second World War. I mean, she actually survived a bombing. And she took this very personal experience and made it into something larger than life.
Yeah.
At what point, sorry, go ahead. You wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, please. I was just going to say, like, my grandmother was a makeup artist at Elstree Studios in London, England. She
Yeah.
never wanted to start a skincare company. She never felt like, oh, this was my calling. She was just really proud of her independence and her ability to make her own money and create the life that she wanted. And she was walking in the street with a girlfriend of hers when a bomb blast, a V2 bomb blast, went off on the street over, and she suffered from shrapnel damage. All she wanted to do was go back to work. All she wanted to do was look good and feel comfortable and confident in her skin, which is a universal truth. We all want to look in the mirror and love the person looking back at us. And so she went on a mission not to fix her skin to start a beauty company. She went on a mission just to fix her skin so she could be proud to work on all of these famous Hollywood actors and actresses. Because she always said, if I don't look the part, how can I make someone feel the part? And so she discovered a very particular type of sea kelp called Jerusalem, which is our proprietary blend of vitamins and nutrients and minerals and amino acids and peptides that we harvest twice a year from a particular type of sea kelp. And it repaired her skin. But in order to find that, she would go every single day to her doctor's office and say, "Hi, doc, anything for me today?" And the doc was like, "No, I've done everything I can." And she believed that her father, who passed away when she was 7, always was a guardian angel. So when the doctor actually had to go deal with a patient, she said there was no magazines, like no Vogue magazines in the doctor's office in that day. And if you're like my grandma or you're like me, when you're bored, you look, you look at things. You're like, oh, what's over here? And she picked up a medical journal and she opened up this one random page. And she believes to this day that her father was looking out for her. And it said war wounds. And she said, I have a war wound. And she scribbled it down. And the doctor came in and said, oh, Elizabeth, those words are just too big for you, and closed the book. And the next day, she went to a friend who was a chemist and she said, "Do you know what this is?" He said, "I do. It's what they use on the front lines on soldiers on the way to the hospital in order to help reduce and minimize the damage." And she said, "Will you make it for me?" And her friend said, "It won't help you." And my grandmother said, "I didn't ask for your opinion. I just asked, would you make it for me?"
Hmm.
And he did. And 8 to 10 months later, she went back to work and she was working on Miss Vivian Lee. And Miss Lee looked at her and said, "You have gorgeous looking skin. What do you use?" And my grandmother, who just suffered this life altering moment, sheepishly went into her bag and took out something as small as this and said, "This is what I use." And a light bulb went off to my grandma because Miss Lee came back because they didn't film in continuity. So a few weeks later, she came back. She said, "I loved it. Where can I get it?" And my grandmother said, if I felt lack of confidence in my skin, and one of the most gorgeous, beautiful women in the entire world who has everything at her fingertips feels like she's not confident in her skin, maybe I have something for someone else. And so she batched the very first serum in the market ever. It helped to create the serum standard in the beauty industry for the at home beauty market. And she launched her very first version of the Essence of Jerusalem in 1948. And the next skincare company came out with a serum in 1982.
Wow. That's fascinating. And I mean, and here you are.
And
It,
here I am.
was there, I guess for you, when was that aha moment when you realized that this actually could become your life's work?
It didn't. I was, funny enough, I was dating somebody and he broke up with me via email. We were living together. It was like my post it moment from Sex in the City. And I came home like to Montreal and I walked into an empty apartment and I was like, what is going on? And my mom took that opportunity because she was playing. She's like, I want you to come join the family business. I said, I'm not ready yet. I like being a teacher. I want to know what's next. Maybe I want to start something else in my career. And my mom's like, that's so cute. Like, you're not going to be living in Montreal. I want you to work. So if you want to live in Montreal, find your own apartment. And so she saw this opportunity of this breakup, this catalyst moment for me where my love of my life, it was over. And she said, listen, we're thinking of sponsoring the Cannes Film Festival. Do you mind representing us over there? I said, sure. Why not? C'est pas mal. It's not serious. It's not bad. Let's go. And it was like she started peppering. She started peppering these opportunities. So we sponsored all of these different gifting lounges when gifting lounges were a thing and taxes weren't an issue for the celebrities. Um, and so I did the Cannes Film Festival a few years in a row. I did the Monaco Grand Prix. I did the Grammys. I did the Emmys. I did the Oscars. It was quite a nice experience. It was like, if this is what's working is, and this is what was nice, why not? And it was in that moment where I didn't really care who was on the other side of who I was talking to. And what I mean by that is I didn't mind what awards or accolades or how famous or infamous or nobodies they were. I was just able to have a conversation with them. And in that conversation, it felt nice to connect, to make people feel great. And then it made me feel even more proud when I was able to attribute it to my grandma and attribute it to my mom, who's my grandmother's daughter-in-law. And having that piece of understanding that it was something to be proud of versus something just to grind for, it changed my whole energy about it. And I got really excited to join the company.
Definitely something to be proud of. But I guess I want to ask you, like, how do you find your own voice in something that's lived for so long? Like, do you ever feel pressure to, you know, to live up to your grandma's standards and what she's built?
Absolutely not. From when I was a really young kid, my grandmother and my mom and my late father always used to say to me, God gave you a voice for a reason. Use it. Not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to be able to stand in it, but you're either going to be able to stand up for yourself, say what you want, meet the way, or someone's going to tell you that for you. And if you don't like the story being told, you might well be the author of your own life. And so I was never in a shadow. I was never someone that I looked at my grandmother to be like, "Oh, those are the shoes I had to fill," because it was never about shoes being filled. And we had the same size feet, so we always got to share shoes. But it was more so, how can I compliment the people who came before me to allow the journey, to allow the respect, to allow the nuance, and then also have the opportunity to figure out where I fit. And luckily for me, my grandma and my mom never had an ego about them. I mean, they have their own egos, they have their own stuff, they have their own pressure. But when it came to me, it was always just, I think we both felt on each way. And I know this sounds kind of silly to say, but we both felt what a privilege it is to work together, what an honor it is to work with each other, what a respect it is to work with each other, and how we can all learn from each other. And I think that was the most beautiful opportunity, because if it felt pressured, if it felt like you had to do something, that I think is where the burnout really can come from.
Hmm. You said something interesting about, learning from each other. Um, Being third generation, what would you say is something you learned along the way, from your grandmother as you're into this VP role today?
N- Nothing is new, nothing is original. And what I mean by that is the pressures you feel, not new. The challenges women feel, not new. The need to earn the respect, not new. The clothing may be different, the trends may be different, but it has always been something that women had to work a little harder. Women had to stand a little taller. Women had to be a little louder. And in that definition, a lot of women lean into, well, I'm going to be aggressive. You don't have to be aggressive. You should be assertive. And I think that is a very big difference to know the definition of between aggression and assertion. And luckily, I had very strong women who were ahead of me who also hit their own ceilings. Because my grandma and my mom weren't like, okay, well, the skies are open for me and the runway is here and there's no hurdles and there's no blocks.
Mhm.
They had them. And in those learnings of what they did, how they felt, how they faced, you can always change the scenario. You can always change the energy. But quite often, the hurdles are very universal. How do you prove, not just to yourself, but to the space that you're in, that you deserve to be there?
Do you? So, yes, I totally agree. But I also wonder, like, it's a very competitive world out there. And with 70 years in, how do you remain relevant when there's just everything's trending these days? Everything, is popular and whatnot. So how do you keep that relevance alive?
We make an amazing product. We're one of the only companies in the entire world who are privately owned by 3 generations of women who make, manufacture, and formulate everything in house. We do not outsource anything, and 90% of the world's skincare is made by a white label factory because manufacturing is the most expensive part of the process. But if you're so concerned about other competition, you're going to be distracted from your own path. It's just that simple. If you're driving your car and you're looking left, your car is going to veer left. But if you just keep looking straight ahead, I don't think we have that much competition. Yes, there's tons of other products. Yes, there's tons of other skincare. But I know we're great. And with that, and with our ethos, and with who we are and what we're trying to achieve, I don't need to focus on the noise. I just need to focus on my goal.
Yeah, very well said, Margot. And maybe the other thing that people might not know is that before having the VP title, you were actually in the marketing, right, of Elizabeth Grant before the vice president title. And
Before every title,
before every time.
I was like way at the bottom.
But I'm very curious, over the years, what would you say the leadership taught you about your leadership taught you about yourself as you kind
If
of move up through the different, ranks and have those different experiences?
if you're not willing to pull in the work, if you're not willing to do the job, if you're not willing to figure it out, how do you expect your team to do it? Because your title is fancy, and I love that. But a title is irrelevant. A title is meaningless. People remember how you make them feel. People remember if you were shoulder to shoulder with them. People remember if you're down in the trenches willing to figure it out. There's not been one day that you can't walk to our manufacturing facility here in Toronto, Canada, and see the president on the line working shoulder to shoulder with our wonderful team. You will not. You'll see the COO. You'll see the head, the main account executives. You'll see marketing team. You'll see that if we need to get an order out, all the people at the front office will go to the back and roll up your sleeves and get it done. Because the reality is, if you're too good for the job, if you're too good for the task, what does that say about your team? Because I've always said, and we say it every day, our team, like my mom and me and my grandma, we razzle dazzle on air. It's great. We sparkle and shine. But without our team, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And
100%.
having that humbleness,
Mhm.
because titles go like that, jobs go like that, life goes like that. And who you are at the end of the day, that's everything else.
And I think it's important. You bring a really important point here because, I mean, what people see, it's the beautiful brand, the beautiful product, but there's so much behind the scenes that happens that people are not aware of, right? It's I guess, the invisible side of success. So, what would you say, you know, let's maybe take a step back. Like, what don't people see?
We're a very transparent company. I
I
think
don't mean
that
necessarily from like transparency, but just, the hustle, like just behind the scenes. How is it actually to have to deal with a family business that's been there for a long time?
so we are an anomaly, and I'll say that because I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
So my dad would come home and say, "We got to stuff 200 envelopes," and me and my brother would be stuffing and licking and stuffing and licking, and we'd have dinner, right? And then I would be 12 or 13, and my mom would be like, have some play dates come over. And then we'd be in the basement stuffing Elizabeth Grant boxes and tying the bow. I'm not even joking. We've just always had a talent to separate church and state. And what I mean by that is we have our work hats and we have our family hats. And do we talk about work at the dinner table? For sure. But it's not all work. And I'm not going to fight with my boss, aka the president, and not let the president see her grandchildren. So we've always understood, and I think because we are immigrants, I think because we had to start again, I think because we have such a small family here, it's important to remember all the fluff. All the outside stuff is just fluff,
Mhm.
and it can change in a minute. But at the end of the day, what do you want your 5 years, your 10 years, your 50 years? How do you want to grow with your family? And so having that separation of church and state, it's sometimes you have to remind people
Mhm.
and be like, I want to talk to my mom, not my boss. But you get there.
Do you find that difficult sometimes?
No,
No.
I used to. I really did used to. I used to sort of have a lot of big feelings. And I think a lot of people have a lot of big feelings. And I think sometimes my mom also had to figure out who I was in my own role versus who I was as her daughter and having two siblings and things like that.
Right.
But I think once you sort of have that decision, it's like anything in life. Once you make a decision, it's good to commit to.
100%. And who would you say Margot is when she's not the VP?
Oh, I'm the same as the VP. I think that's kind of half the fluff. I like to bring a little bit of color to the world. I'm grateful. I'm trying to just do my best every day. And I like being a mom and I like being a friend and I like being a daughter and I just appreciate the opportunity of also trying to make women and men, but specifically women. I love making women feel better about themselves. I love making women stand a little taller. I love making women realize that we don't have to be crabs in a bucket and that we all have crowns. I love understanding, as my grandmother's always said to me, no one likes a misery and you're not going to get out alive. So you might as well try to enjoy the life that you're creating.
Yes, for sure. And actually, when we think about it, what one day someone may inherit this story, right? And so, have
Maybe.
you, do you sometimes think of what you would want, what you would want them to inherit that's not business related, but that's like Margot related?
So, you know the saying, make plans, God laughs.
Yes.
I always just want whoever is in their own driver's seat just to be comfortable and confident with themselves, but humble enough to sort of understand you got to learn and you got to sometimes eat a bowl of garbage with a smile on your face, being like, that's delicious, because that's where the growth comes from. I think a lot of times someone new can come in, someone younger and chipper and exciting. That's not a word, but I like it right now.
I like it
But
too.
and they go, well, I'm going to change everything, right? And the whole conversation is, if you're trying to turn a cruise ship, one of those giant cruise ships, you can't just be like, "Boop," and all of a sudden the ship turns, right? Because if you do that, number one, it's not turning as fast as you want, and two, you'll probably damage something and maybe break the steering wheel. So it's understanding that you can want to make big changes. You can want to take a package and turn it from gold to black or round to square, whatever it is. But what could be the fallout in that big change? And can you try to test those little moments, those little changes to try to prove your proof of concept? Because proof of concept is something that is going to be definitively the best success for you. And you can't sort of be stuck in like a SWOT analysis, or like, if I do this and this is the analysis, sometimes you have to make a move. But can you try a smaller move to prove what you're doing and open up the chance, and also open up the support from people around you to buy into what you're trying to do?
Yes, very well said. And I think at the end of the day, that's what the legacy is all about. I guess maybe if your grandma was here right now sitting with us, what do you think she would say you've done well?
Oh, I was going to say, what do you think she's going to say? Something inappropriate.
No, no,
But
this is a positive
no,
channel.
no, 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 no. I mean, my grandmother has a wicked sense of humor, right? So she would say something inappropriate and make you smile and
I
laugh.
mean, hey, I'm willing to hear that too.
My grandmother's really grateful for me. She's always loved me. We're the same person. It's just a different age. We've
Was
always
there
been.
was there a definitive moment where you took her by surprise, for instance, and she was like, "Wow, I did not expect Margot to do this," or
Yeah, when I was on TV for the first time. So when she first dragged me on TV, I was 18, and I was like a statue.
wow,
I
18.
just I'm 41 now, and 18 is when she dragged me on, and I just stood there, and she used me as a prop, right? And the thing about the channels is you don't want to upset the secret sauce, meaning you don't want to disrupt what's working. And so my grandmother had to sneakily bring my mother in, right?
Mm.
And then my mother had to be able to do a couple shows. And then my mom and my grandma were like, we normally work Friday, Saturday, and Sundays in Canada, different channels around the world. And we were going through a transition period where my mom didn't want to do a Sunday show, and we were transitioning from one host in America as well. And so my mom said, listen, we want you to work to be the Sunday gal for us here in Toronto. They're not going to want you yet, and that's understandable. We need you to go down to America. And I was like, okay. And I went into America, and I knocked it out of the park. I sold out in 4 hours.
Wow.
And that's a hard accomplishment in your 20s, because I'm selling anti-wrinkle cream. I'm selling anti-aging skincare. I'm in my 20s. What do I know?
And I mean, it's
Right?
your
Who am
first
I?
exposure too, like, which is crazy if you started this whole thing at 18 in front of a
Yeah.
TV?
But the reality is, how do you get the respect of the people on the other side? Right? If I'm sitting here bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and flawless, I'm supposed to sit here at 18 and talk to somebody at 50, 60, 70 and be like, listen, yeah, I get it. You understand. They'll be like, no. And I think it's like any relationship.
Hmm.
You earn that respect. You earn that trust. You earn that opportunity. And you earn that opportunity to have the conversation.
But how were
And
you
so,
able at 20 though? At 20, like what are you saying to these people so that you can sell out in 4 hours? I'm
well,
curious.
I think it's always great to reframe, right?
Right.
I think it's very universal that women at every age and every stage don't feel that great about ourselves.
Hmm.
We are always constantly compared to someone. We're always told how we're not enough. You're not smart enough. You're too smart. You're not tall enough. You're not short enough. You're too tall. You're too short. You're not plump enough. You're too not skinny enough. We're always not enough. And isn't it nice to be able to say you really are? Isn't it nice to be able to say what a privilege and a blessing it is to grow older? And if we're able to complain, we're still here to be able to do it. I think it's also nice to know that I was able to talk from my grandmother being doing it since just before 1948. So when I also look at my mom, who helped to relaunch here in Toronto 28 years ago, 27 banks told my mom, we don't believe in women in business, so we're not going to give you a loan.
I was just gonna ask, like, how, I mean, being three women in this business, how often did you get pushback?
Always.
Always.
You're, but that is, I don't care who you are or what driver's seat you are sitting in. other than when it comes to sexual wellness and sexual ethics and sexual morality, where no means no, and I'll make that caveat.
Hmm.
No in business or no in life sometimes more often means not right now. And you're going to get so many no's in your life.
Yeah.
And all you need is one yes. And quite often that one yes comes from yourself. To not give up, to find the door. And my grandmother would always say, if someone closes the door, you go through the window. Because you're going to get all the no's. You're going to get everybody around you telling you why it's a silly idea or why it's not going to work. And let me plant that seed of doubt in your head. And if you are going to be sitting on that side being like, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't. It's dumb. You're never going to see. You're never going to try. You're never going to fail. And failing sucks. It sucks for the sucks for the end goal. It sucks for maybe the finances you put in. It sucks for your ego. But it's amazing because in every one of those failures and every one of those no's, if you can step aside from your ego, you'll be able to learn and you'll be able to grow and do better the next time.
Well, I could tell you, like you, I met you at at a discussion panel before, and that is actually one of the things that really inspired me. I remember coming back to my husband going, "That's it. That goddamn podcast is gonna happen tomorrow." Like, and it's so
Yes.
true. I've spent probably 20 years telling myself, "No, no, like I have a family." I just pushing back, and you're absolutely right. It just takes that one, that instant of someone saying yes and believing in you or advocating for you, and it really is amazing what it could do to a person. So,
Yeah.
and I salute you for having that also mindset, because it's very, very difficult. It also takes one person to put you down sometimes, right? If you're not in the right mood or whatever, it can easily bring you down.
Yeah.
So kudos to you for, having that approach in life, personally, professionally, and also being the example for others to kind of live by, which I think that's one of the main reasons why I absolutely wanted you here, is to talk about that mindset of yours that is just very appealing to me. So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
maybe one last question to wrap it up. 3 generations in, Margot,
Yeah.
your human story, would you say that the world still doesn't know something about you in particular and about your human story?
So I think that's a great question because the reality is there's TV Margot and then there's offline Margot, right? But I think a lot of people are starting to meet offline Margot because it's more than just skincare. I want everyone to feel that they're their own sun, moon, stars, and universe. I want everyone to sort of, this is not to say always be positive and everything's going to go amazingly and everything is perfect because it's not. But I love encouraging people to stand a little taller. I love encouraging people to say, if not you, then who? And this was what the panel was about. The panel was, why does your internal yes mean less than someone's external no?
Yeah.
And knowing that that is a universal truth that is ageless, borderless, genderless, it doesn't matter the ethnicity, it doesn't matter the country, it doesn't matter the age. We're quite often made to feel if we just stay smaller, that's the lane we're meant to be, even if your dreams or your hopes or your wants might be a little bigger. And so my whole thing, it's leaning more into women, it's leaning more into moms because we have this guilt. Well, if I do this, but what about this, but, and how can I do this, but who cares? Everyone, when you shine, you ultimately give people around you permission to also shine. You ultimately give people to stay the opportunity and the pathway and the knowledge to find the ability to stand in their own 2 feet and find the environment that works for them. But if you keep trying to stay small, you're not doing any justice for why you've been placed on this planet.
Margot, before we leave, if people want to know more about you and your company, where can they go?
So for our company and where that discount is, it's elizabethgrant.com, elizabethgrant.com. For all of our socials on every form of thing that's being created in today's world, it's at EG Skincare. And for me personally, I'm at Margot Grant Witz, MargotGrantWitz. And you can find me anywhere.
Thank you so much for joining my little but mighty podcast. You're one of the
I don't
first
think
guests.
this is little at all. I
And
think this is incredible.
I love having these types of conversation. I would love to have you again. And for
Twist my arm and call me Susie. I'm in.
careful what you wish for.
Okay, I'm wishing, I'm putting, saying please and thank you. I'm in. If you want me, I'm back.
And well, absolutely will do. And you also were kind enough to give us a little House of Rou discount. It's House of Rou 25 for those chiming in. I'll have more details on our social media. But again, Margot, thank you so much for joining. It was a beautiful, you're a great storyteller. I feel like you could just, you take me on this crazy journey the minute you start talking, and it was lovely having you. Thank you so much.
I loved it, but I'm just going to end on one thing.
Yes.
My darling Rue. This is not a little tiny podcast.
I should listen to what you're preaching.
This is the beginning of something that you've started. This is the beginning of something that you wanted. This is the beginning of something that can be anything that you want it to be. And so I think you have to give yourself kudos for trying to put your own 2 cents in a world that has so many cents around it. And I love that you're doing it. And I love that you're putting your 2 feet together. And I love that you're putting your money where your mouth is, because ultimately, having more people who want to share such a great opportunity to try is the best place to be.
Oh, thank you. It was lovely. Thank you so much. And we'll see you again for sure.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of House of Rou. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. And if this conversation made you think differently, reflect more deeply, or feel a little more connected to the human experience, I hope you'll share it too with someone who needs to hear it today. I'm Rosanna McHale, and this is House of Rou.